My God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus said this while dying, hanging on the cross. This is your Kuya Mel, continuing with our recollection. Our topic, when bad things happen to good people. When bad things happen to us, perhaps we would wonder if God really exists, because why did God let this happen to us? It is a mystery. It is difficult to understand. At its onset, it's hard to fathom what had happened. That's why the elders advise that we trust God's wisdom. I mentioned already that Jesus cried out while on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" I remember when I was a child, I wanted a bike, and my father bought me one. He took me to Dewey Boulevard to teach me to ride and to practice. So my dad assisted me holding the back of the bike while I pedal it. I enjoyed the ride, and I didn't notice that my dad already withhold his hands from the bike. When I noticed it, I looked back in panic. So I lost my balance and fell. My dad ran towards me and helped me get up. I was irritated at my dad, thinking he abandoned me. My dad was laughing at me and teasing me that I already knew how to pedal the bike. All I need is to have that courage and not to be scared and to keep my focus and not get distracted. Losing my focus was the culprit. At first, I couldn't understand why he had to let go, but later I do. I realized that my dad always did what was right. Even if he let go, my dad always supported me. But he had to let go so that I learn, even if it would mean that I will get hurt in the process. Jesus went through the same process up to the point he was badly bruised. He wills it. He knows it is coming, that soon he will suffer. He even predicted how he will suffer. But once you are in that situation, the pain could be unimaginable. If this happens to me, I would be startled and question is if God really exists. And I could even question, how did I get to this? But if one is focused on his goal, his mission, you can't be moved. That is Jesus. He knows. He had hope. He had the faith that in dying, he can redeem us. It was written that the Messiah will be risen on the third day. And I believe on the third day, Jesus will rise again. And then indeed, he resurrected and gives hope. Let us now reflect who Jesus is to us in our unique Calvary, our unique way of carrying our own crosses. My assumption here is all those watching this video are Christians. Of course, isn't it obvious in the name and description of our heritage? Jesus is like a hero, a model to reach the summit of who we are, the totality of our person. But not an ordinary hero. He introduced himself as the one who brings the fullness of life, and he wants us to enjoy it in abundance. He is calling each of us to follow him, not just to admire what he was doing. He is truly a model, an example to reach the fullness of who we are. So now, let us look back into our own experience of Calvary. Jesus is inviting us to embrace and accept it. When did this happen? What sufferings did you experience? How did you find Jesus in the midst of your sufferings? What did Jesus do for you? What was your response? To you, how would you describe Jesus? Who is Jesus to you? I will share my experience as a guide for you in looking at your own experience in this reflection. Since I encountered Jesus in my youth community when I was 20, I considered him my best friend. I recognized Jesus in the love I experienced, especially in moments of prayers in the company of my youth community. However, community problems were my challenges. Those were the times when I felt persecuted in my own community because of my progressiveness, always questioning their policies and rules. I find comfort in Jesus, in his words in the gospel, where I find consolation. Jesus taught me to be tolerant, open, and compassionate, that the human person is more important than rituals and rules. He once said, "The Sabbath is made for man, not man for the Sabbath." Once I had this dream. I saw my friend driving a bus. My friend calls me and told me, "Drive this bus." I don't know how to drive, I had phobia in driving. But then when I woke up, I realized that it was Jesus that was telling me to drive in my dream. And he was asking me to drive it for him, entrusting to me the life of his passengers. So I was thinking, Jesus trusted me. But many misfortunes happened to me that was discouraging. And for almost 25 years, I hid and left the church. Anger and distrust engulfed me, leaving the church that I once loved and offered my life with. Because it was in this church that I feel belittled, invalidated, not only once but many times. From my own community, from their leaders who prioritize only rules instead of what is applicable for us, to those nuns who invalidated and questioned my abilities, feeling humiliated and embarrassed to myself, feeling so little, I decided to leave, to get out of the stress. If you can stand the heat, leave the kitchen. I left with a heavy heart, searching for joy that I couldn't find anywhere. But I remember, Jesus was always with me even if my heart was in trouble. Jesus was with me even if I feel I left him. He never left my side. My consciousness just left him, yet he was there with me. I know because I always tell him, I always talk to him my loneliness in my reflections. I confide to him my brokenness whenever I felt betrayed, abused, and abandoned me. I remember one time when I was praying, I was asking him why I couldn't feel you, but I know you are here. I felt that I was away, but in fact, he was there carrying me. Now in my senior years, he is my counselor who listens and guides me. It makes me understand whenever I'm lonely, I might not feel him, but he is here. And each time I realized it, I overcome my loneliness and I found peace. He is my healer. How about you? What is your story of Jesus? Who is Jesus to you? For me, Jesus is a friend, counselor, my healer. Do you know that once you identified and describe who he is to you, that gives you a cue to your best self? As for me, he is calling me to be a friend, a counselor, and a healer. Jesus is the perfect archetype of my best self. I may have suffered and fallen, but in Jesus' image is my salvation, the fullness of my being. Jesus himself is calling us to follow his footprints in our lives. When bad things happen, do not panic. God is with us. Jesus is with us. Remember, Jesus promised to send us his Spirit to be our guide and strength. He is here within. To end our recollection, let us reflect, meditate who Jesus is, how he is calling us to follow him in dealing with life's struggles and uncertainties, how He is calling us to the fullness of life, living it abundantly so we may be whole.